We stand for limited government. We stand for lower taxes. We stand for safer communities. We stand for our children, not the sexual predators. We stand for legal immigration, not illegal aliens. We stand for stronger schools, right? Not the 2 million folks throughout the state of New York who are in our prisons right now. And the reality is that sometimes we forget that. And especially in New York State, where it's so easy to see that line be blurred. And at the end of the day, in Albany, it's not about Republicans versus Democrats. It's really not. It's about continuing to constantly do the right thing. And as an independent guy with an independent voice, it feels great not only to have all you here, but to have from Putnam County the Republican chairman to my right, and from Westchester County the Republican chairman to my left. Yeah. Because that type of institutional support I didn't have 2 years ago. Hey! We live in the greatest nation that the world has ever known, period. Right. We live in the greatest state that this country has ever known. But we have 2 million New Yorkers that have left this state because of overtaxation. New Yorkers are voting with their feet. Politicians have done a very good job of shifting blame to such an extent that the taxpayers actually believe when you go door to door that there's nothing politicians can do to tackle the tax crisis. The politicians have shifted blame for so long. At the local level, we say it's the state mandates. At the state level, we say it's the federal mandates. Everybody's pointing the finger the other way. Meanwhile, their hand is in your back pocket. And they've shifted blame so successfully that the taxpayers have come to believe that taxes aren't a factor of politicians. Taxes are a fact of nature. We've got to shift that. We've got to take responsibility. We've got to take accountability. We now have a blue ribbon commission throughout the state of New York to actually make a tax cap a reality. I take taxes very personally. Whether it be my family that dealt with the tax prices, the school tax prices, or it be, you got to understand how I came into this business. I came into this business going door to door. I knocked on over 10,000 doors. And you would knock on a door, and you've all heard the story. You knock on the door, and you go into the home, and many times it was a senior, many times it was a widow, and you would sit down, and you could see the hurt, the pain in her eyes. Whether she's 75, 78, 80 years old. And you'd sit down, and you would look around that room, whether it was her dining room table or whether it was her living room, and there were papers everywhere. This wasn't just once. This was hundreds of times. And when she began to talk to you, you realized that she was in the middle of financial chaos. Absolute financial chaos. And the moment in her life when she should be able to enjoy the home in which she lived, the home in which she built with her husband, the community which she helped make better, she has to decide between a reverse mortgage or moving to North Carolina. That's a travesty. And when I would knock on those doors, they would say, "Greg Ball, you're just another politician, aren't you?" And I would say, "Ma'am, I'm not." I said, "Ma'am, I will fight every day against the tax increases." And I would look her in the eye. And I made that connection again and again and again. So when the county executive, who is a Republican of Putnam County, asked me to introduce a property tax increase and a sales tax increase, I had to say, is it the final option? And when I realized it wasn't the final option, I had to say no. The reality is I voted down the line against the budget and I stood up. When I was running for office, I stood in front of Gil and Ann Kaufman's home. And Gil and Ann Kaufman are forced with a decision on whether they can continue to stay in Yorktown because of the high school taxes. As thousands of people, working families and seniors, are now forced to make that decision. So everything that goes across my desk, I give it the Gil and Ann Kaufman test. Can we afford this? Can we afford this? That tax increase, you talk about this governor. Now there's nobody, there's no Republican who reached across the aisle more and said, "Governor, if you're ready to reform Albany, if you're ready to take on Sheldon Silver, and yes, Joe Bruno, if you're ready to take the big boys on, Greg Ball, the fighter that he is, will stand in this assembly, the pit bull terrier he is, and we'll give him hell." And at the end of the day, these proposals, that mandate was lost. The mandate for comprehensive school tax reform, the mandate for budget reform, the mandate for ethics reform. That's the mandate that still stands without a leader at the state level. So I'm going to fight very hard to get Patterson on the right track. I do have a personal connection to Patterson from my first months in office, and I look forward to pushing him on the school tax reform issue. I want to talk about now the second issue, the illegal immigration. When I ran for New York State Assembly, everybody told me, "Greg Ball, what are you doing talking about illegal immigration?" I watched, as a candidate, I watched nationwide as state by state by state, the driver's license issue for illegal aliens reared its ugly head. And I knew New York was going to be a target. The Journal News said, just not a state issue. When I went to the New York State Assembly, I was first to mention the driver's license issue in conference. I was the first to mention it in committee. I was the first to mention it on the floor of the Assembly. I had the news crews there, and I had my fellow Assemblymen saying, what are you talking about? Then it hit. Your Assemblyman, the small staff, we have 4 staff members, you're looking at the 4th. My staff are on loan from God. I have Joyce Lambert, Fred Lambert, they're married, so they have to live with this 24 hours a day, and Matt Nuringer. And are you here? Fred, Joyce, Matt?